The original Macintosh cost $8,000 in today's money, and this is a Mac Plus. It's not technically the original 128K Mac, but it's pretty close. The crazy thing is I can emulate these things almost perfectly on a $1 Raspberry Pi RP2040 chip. That's this little guy. But to get video out of this, I added this Pico Micro Mac, a little VGA adapter board. And why am I doing all this? Well, this month is Macintosh. I'm gonna restore some old Macs and explore Apple's role in computing history. But today, I'll start by building the original Macintosh, but on a Raspberry Pi Pico. Now, I didn't write the code for this. The code for this comes from Matt Evans, and the little adapter board is from Ron's Computers. I bought all this stuff, but I didn't buy the sponsor of all my Macintosh videos that are coming up, Micro Center. I'll tell you more about them in a main channel video, but for now, let's put this thing together. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I actually found out about this project through some other YouTubers, and I had to cheat a little and look at Action Retro's video on how to figure out the orientation for the older version of the board that I have. The latest version of the Pico Micro Mac has 2 rows of headers and a built-in card reader slot, so it's even easier to put it together. You can avoid soldering entirely if you buy a Pico WH, and that means with headers. But I have the older V2 version, so I have to take it to my workbench. First, I laid out all the parts, making sure the big header was on one side and the little one on the other side. I wanted removable storage, so on my version of the Pico Micro Mac, I had to stack this little guy up on top. Now, like I said, newer revisions don't need this at all. The card slot is on the main board. But since I had this version, I stuck it on. Over on my ESD mat, I made sure everything was squared off, then I soldered the 4 corners first so things wouldn't move around on me. Then it was just soldering each of the pins, in my case 20 on one side and 8 on the other. For the pins that go through the SD card board, those were a little more complicated. You're kind of blind soldering. So I just made sure to let everything heat up a little more, then I fed through a little extra solder. You're soldering the top of the pin, the via basically on the SD card board, and the solder pad on the Pico below, which you can't see at all. So I also went back and reflowed solder on a few of those pins too, just to be sure that it went all the way down. I noticed after soldering the rest of the pins that one of the pads on the SD card board was kind of a dry joint. It looks like maybe I left it on the iron too long. So I took a little piece of wick and pulled off some solder. Little pro tip, I've always hated solder wick, and I still kind of do, but this video from NanoFix gave me that tip about snipping off just a small piece so that at least you can not burn your fingers and the piece can heat up evenly. Anyway, the next step is to flash the firmware that runs macOS onto the Pico, and then copy the disk image for booting it over to the microSD card. First, I flashed the firmware. I went to this Pico Micro Mac creator website and downloaded the pre-configured UF2 file. You take that file and copy it right onto the Pico, and that's it. To do that, I held down the boot select button on the Pico while I was plugging it in. Then I dragged the UF2 file over to it. When it finishes copying, the drive will just eject itself and you're done. For the disk image, I used Raspberry Pi Imager to format my microSD card as FAT32. Then I copied over the bootable disk image I downloaded from the Pico Micro Mac site and plugged the card into the Pico. All right, so we have it all together. Here's the little Pico Micro Mac, and what I have set up is I have a little USB, it's micro USB to USB-A adapter. I actually have this little extra one because someday I plan on putting this into a 3D printed case with this little screen. This is a 5-inch VGA display. It also has HDMI input, and it takes a 5-volt USB input, which means that I will be able to eventually run these two together off of one power input. Right now I'm using 2 power supplies. Both of them are little micro USB power supplies. So I have that plugged in with this keyboard and mouse, and all together everything, it's probably around $100 for this setup, which is kind of ridiculous to emulate a Mac from 1984, but it's cool. And sometimes you pay a lot of money for cool things, and then you can regret the decision later. But anyway, I will do the peel on the screen for anybody that enjoys that. I'll try to get that off. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and press the power button, and I'll zoom in so we can see what happens here. All right, turning on power to my yo-yo and the Raspberry Pi. Yo-yo. It didn't come with a yo-yo. That'd be kind of fun if it did. But here it goes, it's booting up the Mac. And that little welcome screen was a little bit off, I guess. But let me zoom in here and we'll get a closer look. This comes with a few applications. It comes with some games and some programs like MacWrite and MacPaint. Anybody that used a Mac, one of the original few Mac models, you've spent a lot of time in MacPaint. In fact, let's Let's do a little thing in honor of Macintosh today. So I'll do Happy Macintosh. And I think we can actually change that. Ooh, let's make that a little smaller. Happy Macintosh. And then we'll make it very happy. Oh, I don't even remember how to use this with a smiley face. Happy Macintosh. Yeah, Mac Paint was fun back in the day. You could draw shapes, and once you drew them, you could put these fun little patterns inside of them. Whoop, that's not the pattern tool. Grab that and that. There you go. Look at that. You could even make this look like the background. I think it even comes with a couple sample files. Let's look. Files, RCV. Yeah, there's Ron from Ron's Computer Videos. And a sample memo. Ooh, this looks very, very important. Let's see. Oh wow, I can't make this taller. That's interesting. Wonder why that is. If I click on this, there's not, you can't really expand the window that way either. It's funny, I can put the window down here, but I can't make it taller than it is. If I drag this, see? It's amazing how little has changed and how much has changed. Like, this is basic font. Oh wow, okay, so that's changed a lot. The whole document is now center aligned. So it is, it's crazy how different things are today, but how the basic parts of a user interface were all defined pretty well in the first generation of these Macs. But let's check what games we have on here. Ooh, Crystal Raider. I think that's one of my favorite old games that I used to play on these Macs. Okay, press the button. Yep. Oh wow, the the mouse control is extremely sensitive on here. Ah, I'm barely moving the mouse and it's flying around. So you collect all these crystals. Holy cow, that guy's going fast. I think part of the problem is that maybe the emulation speed is a little fast on here. Escape, Command Q. Nope, Command Q does not do it. I want to get out of this game. I don't know how to quit this. If I press any key, it just puts me back in the game. And yeah, I'm just going to turn it off and turn it back on so that we can get back in. But let's see what else. We got bricks, breakout, you know. And the mouse is fairly sensitive here, but it's actually a lot easier than Crystal Raider. Let's see if we can get this going up into a section up here. Oh no. There is a little bit of, I don't know if that's necessarily from the emulation or from the way that the system 5.6, I think, on here runs. There's a little bit of flicker. There we go. And look at that, there's a little graphical artifact right up here. Whoa, and the ball just sped up. I don't think the emulation is perfect. We're talking about a little Raspberry Pi Pico. But there are a lot of games on here. Let's check out Solitaire. I remember Missile Command as well. Let's see. So there's your Solitaire. And I think that this, I got the one that's like 640 by 480. The actual original Mac display was smaller than that. So I think that's why that I couldn't make the window height larger in Mac Write. Is that what it was called? Yeah, Mac Write. I'm guessing that's why. So if I go in here and make a new thing, I think that the window size, it wasn't 480 lines tall, so I guess the programmers were like, you can't make a window that big. We'll try Missile Command. We did not have 3D graphics back in the early Mac days. Funny thing is I don't see the little city that I'm defending at the bottom. I wonder if that's a rendering problem or if I'm just misremembering this game, but I thought there was supposed to be like a city with a bunch of buildings down here. Yep, that's Missile Command. And I can quit out of it. That's good. Let's see if Frogger works. One player. Oh, play. Let's reboot this thing again. You know what I don't see on here is Dark Castle, which I remember playing as a kid. I don't know what Aliens is. Let's see, start game. But now this game is not loading up at all. And I'm going to reboot the Mac again. The funny thing is, this is a similar experience to what you'll get if you try restoring one of these Macs, except with considerably fewer capacitors that you have to replace. So this setup will probably last for decades, whereas actual Macintoshes, if it's not already battery bombed, you're going to have other issues to deal with for sure. But yeah, that is the operating system. And let's look back in the early days. There was not much in here. They didn't have extensions. They didn't have system preference folder with, well, actually back then they called it the control panel. They didn't have a folder for that. Let's check out some other things. About the Finder, it's version 5.3, 208 kilobytes of RAM. It does come with an alarm clock, which I guess you can set a time there. There's no speaker on this, so that is one thing that is a little sad to not have. Maybe someday we could get emulated sound. There's a calculator for all of your, your simple math needs. There is the chooser. Oh, there's nothing to choose on the startup disk. Well, that's too bad. I was going to choose to have colors, but that's not supported on here either. The control panel, so before they had like individual control panels, they had this big conglomeration of all the controls. And sadly, like I said, there's no speaker, so we're not going to hear anything. But if you wanted a different desktop pattern, you do that, and then that. See, I made my own custom desktop pattern. That was how you did it back in the day. And I don't think that this can actually connect to an Apple Talk network, but that would be kind of fun. And I don't know what tablet means. Oh, I guess it's just really slow. So it's like normal speed or really slow. But I can see that the mouse is kind of moving more in a like diagonal and up and down motion instead of very smoothly. So I think the mouse emulation is not perfect for what it could be, but it's good enough. There's RAM cache, keyboard repeat, the rate of insertion point blinking. I don't know the last time I saw that thing as a control. But yeah, that's control panels. Keycaps, so you can see when you press different keys to make sure your keyboard works. And scrapbook. It probably comes with a few. Let's see. Ooh, the downtown office occupancy rate. You could copy this, copy it, and then paste it over into a Word document or something. Let's see if this works. Programs, Mac Paint. Can I paste into here? Scrapbook. And let's see if I copy. I'm going to copy this beautiful picture. Copy. And paste. Look at that. And you can even drag it around. This is pretty advanced. I'm actually quite surprised. And if we wanted to add our own cool patterns to this, we could add this guy. Oh wait, I need to do paint bucket. Choose these little balls. Look at that. How pretty. How fun. Oh, that's not working. There you go. Very fun. Yeah, that was, I mean, things are better these days, but also worse. We have all these curved things. Like, could you imagine the curves that we have in macOS 26 Tahoe? On here, the curve would take up most of this window, and you'd have like one icon in the middle. Things are a lot less efficient these days. Even with the janky mouse movement, it's easier to use this than a modern Tahoe Mac sometimes. But let's go ahead and shut this guy down, and we'll conclude the video. Well, I shut it down and it turned back on. What's crazy is all this is emulated on a $1 microcontroller, something that you'd find like in toys or little IoT sensors. An entire old computer inside a chip that's a couple millimeters square. While there's no sound and you're not going to have that same CRT vibe, it's a fun way to tinker with a Mac without dealing with leaky capacitors and high voltages. So that's it, a quick video to kick off Macintosh. Stay tuned and make sure you're also subscribed to Gearling Engineering, where my dad and I take a look at another Pico-based project used to save old iMacs from the e-waste bin.